Hello, everybody. It's a calming Sunday. We're going to have nice, calming talks about the real estate market. But first, we have to do some announcements. The first announcement is in the comment section of many of my videos, you'll see a profile picture that looks just like me, and it will say pinned comment. Oops. I got reverb. Uh-oh. I got reverb. No, I don't. Apparently, Eddie had two windows open. I'm so sorry. back to the announcements. If you see a pinned comment that will say something like "pinned by Kristina," or it will even say my name, or maybe a misspelling of my name, and then it's telling you to contact what you think is me with a WhatsApp number or a fake phone number or anything like that. I am not selling anything that has to do with any kind of currency that would be considered not true. I'm just not doing that. I don't do anything with crypto. And I even hate saying the word because I feel like that almost invites those people in here, because this is not what my channel is about. I never, ever, 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 ever ask you to contact me because of that. And if you do need to get in contact with me, I have a website. It's KristinaSmallhorn.com. You can connect with me on my website. The next thing is 2 weeks ago, I did a video about a house that you could build in 28 minutes. In that video, I had cooked some crawfish. I don't know if anybody's aware, but crawfish is a crustacean that cannot be cooked when it's not alive prior. And I offended a lot of people by cooking live crawfish. It is a cultural food here in Louisiana. I thought it would be two things that you could compare because they cook about the same time as it would take to put the house together. It offended a lot of people that I would cook live food, but I don't like everybody eats hamburgers, hot dogs. I wouldn't say everybody, but there's a large portion of society that eats food at one time that was alive. I didn't know it was going to be so offensive. I've learned a lesson. I will never cook a crustacean on my channel again, but just know that you cannot cook dead crustaceans or seafood and not expect to get sick afterwards. Like you just can't. So anyway, so that is another, that was one more thing I had to touch up on. And lastly, on Tuesday, I am flying to Boxabl. I'm flying to Las Vegas. I am meeting up with them because I am going to be asking them the hardest hitting questions that you can think of. I mean, like hard hitting questions. Like, when are they actually going to be able to put these in people's backyards that have been waiting years now, that have put deposits down? I'm going to be asking them how many homes are they actually putting out in production, because their website says 72, but I got an email that said they're only putting out 2 houses a day. And if they're only putting out 2 houses a day, who the heck who's getting these houses? Who's getting them? So if you have any other like big questions you want to ask Boxables, you can put it in the comment section of this video once it airs, afterwards, in the comment section. Today, we're going to be talking about the supply of homes. It seems to be getting a little bit better. So we're going to be discussing that with one of your favorite people in the planet, that every time I have him on the show, you guys just absolutely love him, Mr. Matt Kelderman.
Hello. And
Hey, Matt,
look, I have a grown-up background now, as opposed to last time I was on you, which was just like some generic white wall I lived in front of.
Well, my husband earlier, Eddie, who's the producer in the background, noticed that you have Biggie Smalls in the background, and
I
he
do.
also is a Biggie Tupac fan, and I call my husband Big Papa. So,
I love it. I think that's awesome.
yeah, so I put them next to my bobblehead Eddie right now, just to kind of keep the theme going.
I love it. It's perfect. It's fantastic. Well,
So,
I'm excited to be on today. Thank you very much for having me.
well, thanks for finally showing up, man. Like,
I
really?
know. Well, I moved
You've
into this
blown me
new
off
house.
3 times.
You
3
know the
times.
craziest thing about this? We do this job for a living, and then you actually move yourself, and you remember why, like, sometimes clients have such a hard time in this process. What a beating moving yourself was. Just getting the internet hooked up is enough to like not move again ever in the history of the world. So I was trying to be sensitive to everybody because I was running off my hotspot for 2 weeks.
Well, I will tell you this. I was like, you know what? I'll wing it. I'll do it by myself. And I asked everybody, what do you think? Should I do it by myself more often? And like, everybody's like, yeah. So I'm thinking like once a month, I'm just going to, wing it. I'm probably next week, I'm probably going to do it by myself because I know people will be wanting to know more about Boxabl and everything. So I'll be putting that
Nice.
video out.
I love
I
it. I
know it's
love it.
very exciting. Oh, and one more thing. I don't know if you guys know this too. That video of the little house they put in my backyard, they're gonna fix up that little house because it didn't actually have the bathroom. It was just a sample house. It didn't have a bathroom or anything like that. So they're gonna fix that house up and they're gonna actually deliver it to me. They're gonna give me a little bonus for doing that.
Nice.
I still have to pay for it, but it's not like the same because it doesn't have the bathroom in the kitchen and all that other crap that would go in a tiny home. So they're going to be installing that. And that's going to be my new studio for YouTube. I'm very excited.
I was about to say, you're probably getting a lot more space to maneuver in for sure.
Oh my God. This is only a 6x6 room. Anybody that knows, like, I've shown it several times, but it's a very, very tiny room. So not to have the dogs and the cats and everything else, but I think I'm going to do a catwalk so the cats can come in and like walk behind. I know. Anyways, that's besides the point. And besides the point, we're going to be talking about this housing supply because Eddie, go ahead and throw up that article. Every time I say throw up, I always think I got to come up with the different expressions besides throw up that article. It just doesn't sound good. Thank you, Lawnmower, for putting that Matt's YouTube channel in there.
Yes, thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
Housing supply is finally improving as high prices at rising rates weigh on sales. I'm going to ask you a question about this as soon as we finish the article a little bit. One of the leanest housing markets in history might have been putting on some fat at the supply of homes. Eddie, you got the little bird covering the words. Eddie, you got the birds. Stat. Okay. One of the leanest housing markets in history might be putting on some fat. The supply of homes for sale could increase in the next few weeks, according to the new data from Realtor.com. In April, inventory was at 12%, lower than the same month last year, the smallest year-over-year decline since 2019. Another reading for the last week's April shows inventory down 3% from a year ago. April data suggests that a positive turn of events in the horizon for weary buyers. If the trend we're seeing now holds true, we could potentially see year-over-year inventory growth within the next few weeks. That's the chief economist from Realtor.com. She says this. Okay, is there a little bit more to this article, I believe? Okay. The shift in supply is likely due to a slower sales pace stemming from recent and rapid mortgage rates, which made expensive homes even pricier. The average rate of a 30-year fixed rate mortgage jumped more than 2.5 percentage points since the start of the year. New listings were down 0.9% in April compared to a year ago, and the number of active listings is still down 67% from pre-pandemic levels. That's important for everybody to think about, by the way. The growth in supply is led by mid-sized homes, and fewer are going under contract despite being in the spring market, a popular time for families shopping for houses. Higher mortgage rates combined with the record high home prices have sidelined much of the competition. Home prices up to 34% since the start of the pandemic. The monthly mortgage payment of $400,000 for a home with 20% down is now $467,000 more than it was in March 2020, according to Realtor.com. We're just going to stop right there because we'll come back to it if we need to come back to it. But I want to talk about a couple things. I've seen, Matt, a couple of YouTubers say that because this is now interest rates have increased so much, we're going to see housing prices tank. What is your perception on that?
One, I think that is probably the most accurate, up-to-date article I've seen anybody write in a while. Because I do think that article you just read is a lot of the stuff that's happening. Inventory has gone up. We are seeing buyers start to be able to take advantage of the space that's created by the less than strong buyers who the interest rates did chase out of the market. So there is a little space where I think it is softened and it's a little bit kinder to some of the people who have been playing this for a while. Man, Here's what I see happening in DFW, and I'll only speak to my market. I don't think prices are going to tank. I certainly believe this is going to force some sort of leveling off, right?
Mhm.
I've said it on the show before. Certain markets here in DFW, Dallas Fort Worth specifically, have been fundamentally reset, right? $500,000 neighborhoods that are now $700,000 neighborhoods, and it's not just based off one comparable. It's a year and a half of activity. Um, I'm not an intelligent enough human to speak on what's going on globally with the economy and how that's going to affect us in the United States, but the housing market here in DFW is showing those leading indicators of longer day on market, more inventory, homes coming back on market, which tells me that buyers aren't just going to take whatever they're given, right? So
Mhm.
I think there's a lot more leverage on the buyer side, and I think it's bringing some sanity back into the market, like the article says, which I certainly appreciate. I do not think home prices are going to go through the floor, right? I do think they are going to level off though. But if you're waiting for that $400,000 house to be 325, I don't think that's what's about to happen at all.
Yeah. And well, the thing is that the biggest thing that keep sticking in my brain is inventory, inventory,
Yeah.
inventory, inventory. And yeah, so we still have 67% less inventory that we did pre-pandemic. That's a large number of homes. And we do not have enough foreclosures that are in the pipeline that are about to hit the market. That was one of those things that I've heard several people say. I'm like, where are you getting this foreclosure number? I cannot find it. The numbers that have been quoted, they never say. They just make a blanket statement of there's 15 million houses that are in foreclosure.
Well, look,
What?
I can make a stat say anything too. You can read
Yeah.
articles that say like, mortgage applications are down. Sure, maybe they are, but a lot of those were refinanced. Like refinances are down, right? For sure.
Mhm.
I don't think you would refinance into a 5.5. And interest rates are something that I do think is really relevant topic for buyers and
Absolutely.
sellers right now, because we've got the sellers who still are hearing about this market that existed where they were getting 30 and 40 offers. That still exists in some markets for some people, but you're also still pricing your home really aggressively. And now you've got buyers who maybe 2 months ago could have gotten a 3.5 that are sitting on a 5.5 now, and their dynamic has completely changed on how they're approaching this whole process. And I do think there'll be a little bit of confusion why the two get back on the same page.
Right. Well, like how many sellers want to sell their house to have to dive into a higher percentage rate mortgage?
Mhm.
Like, why would they do that? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Only if you're downsizing. I went on an appointment this morning with a gentleman who his house is it's a luxury price point, and he's looking to
Mhm.
downsize. And when I was asking him, just kind of doing some of my due diligence, I was asking what his current interest rate is, and it's below a 3. And it's going to be hard for him to match, right? Like it's going to be possible for him to match
Mhm.
that, but it's going to be hard for this move for him to make sense, even if he's downsizing, because he might not end up in a better position than he wanted to be to have the extra cash to go out and invest in Airbnbs and short-term rentals, which is what his game plan is, and all of that stuff. So it does. The interest rates making everybody slow down a little bit, I think.
Yeah, and interest rates, inflation, all those things are affecting everybody. And
Mhm.
even though that the other thing is that the home builders are very aware of what's going on in the economy. They've had like numerous problems since the beginning of the pandemic. Many of them at the beginning of the year were very optimistic. Now they're kind of like rolling back. So if they were thinking about building 100 houses, now they're thinking about doing about 50 homes because they think they can get those completed and sold. Some of them are already pre-sold. So, but they are so concerned with interest rates that they're not willing to take the risk to build extra.
And I think it
Even if they
depends. Well, I think it depends on what your game plan is too. I would say anybody going this market, I know life happens, but have a clear understanding of kind of what your timeframes are, because interest rates do matter. I'm not going to say they don't matter. I also think that
Mhm,
we've been on a really, really nice run of interest rates for the past 10 years. If you go look at 50-year trends, a 5 or 6% interest rate really isn't that bad, right? It's
mhm,
been very, very low for a very long time, and it was never going to stay that way, right?
mhm.
And I'm not saying they won't go back there. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't understand how all these economics affect each other at a high enough rate to predict that. But a 5.5% interest rate, if we're anticipating interest rates going up to 6.5, 7, I still wouldn't sneeze at that. And I'll always challenge that owning a home is better than renting, regardless of the interest rate, right?
Well,
Like
especially now.
if
Have you seen how
possible,
much
yes, yes,
rents are crazy, like
yeah.
25, 30, 35%. Austin was 35%. I believe Atlanta, when I had, Shadia. Oh man, I cannot. I'm so bad about her name. That makes me so angry. Anyways, she was on here. She's from the Atlanta market. Love her to death. The sweetest little person. But she said investor buyers are killing their market, and because they are raising the rate for rent is like exponentially.
Oh, 100%. And look, here's the thing is like, I know that this might be a slightly unpopular opinion, and I'll throw this out there because I'm not one of the people who owns a bunch of rental properties and has rents to increase, but
Mhm.
it is a business decision, right? Like if the point of owning, and I'm not talking about the institutional investors, I'm talking about the guy who owns has a 4 or 5 home investment portfolio that
Right,
really
that's
is a wealth
different.
building tool for his family, right? Like
Mhm.
he does have to, yes, he has the advantage of having the same mortgage rate, but if the rent next door is $400 more a month, he would be doing his family and his life a disservice by not raising that rent. I know it sucks for the person who gets the rent raised on him, but it's also just natural economics. I've always agreed with you on this show that like the institutional buyers, people going up and buying up whole blocks and raising rents and stuff like that, that's a huge problem. But the guy,
Mhm.
most people out there own 3 or 4 houses, right? Or 1 or 2 houses as investment property. Those people are just trying to get along like everybody else.
Right. We didn't raise our rent. We
No,
we have a few rental houses. We did not raise it.
yeah.
Matter of fact,
And
one
look,
of them, we were such a good renter, we dropped it. We dropped the
yeah, and look, and
rent
I think
because we
I think
didn't want them to leave.
if that works into your wealth building portfolio, and that's the other thing too. If you have great renters who take care of your property, have pride in it, make sure that they continue to increase the value of your asset by taking care of it. That it is not about the $250 extra dollars a month money grab either. There are other things that make a good tenant for sure.
Dan T says NBC's Bay Area Investigation Unit uncovered a growing members only club online consisting of investors that exclusively access house listings the average home buyer can't easily see.
Of course they
Uh,
do.
they've always done that. That
Yeah, of course
that
they do.
that has been a thing since, I'm gonna tell you, like, right after the housing crash last time, a lot of these investors bought up as many as they could because they were under bad loans, so they buy them as a package, so they had, like, 45 houses, and they let them sit vacant forever. Some of them took those 45 houses and turned them into rental units, some of them, fixed them up, and then some of them gave them to groups like this to work, and that's not unheard of. That's been a thing for quite some time.
It has been, and
Yeah.
I think one of the things too that the consumer, it's really important for them to understand even about the mechanisms of how these lists come together. That that so for instance in our business there's 30 agents on our team, but a part of the mechanism of our business is calling and asking people if they might be looking to sell. You always have a list of people who might be interested in selling. Now I'm not saying that's what these huge investment companies are doing, but they're out there doing the same lead generation mechanisms. They're sending out mailers, they're sending out text messages, emails, phone call, trying to get anybody who might sell their house at a discount to raise their hand, and then they're keeping that list of people even if they can't buy that house and potentially trying to sell it off to other investors. it,
Mhm.
it's really, really super common just because of the mechanisms at which you find those deals in the first place.
So Eddie wants me to read this. It says, sure, real estate investors get a bad rap, but for some investors our investigation team spoke with said they add value to the neighborhoods. Many neighbors, tenants impacted by the developments disagree, saying the investors drive up the price, expedite, go fast up on gentrification in the process of investigating whether real estate investors contribute to the housing crisis. NBC Bay Area Investigates Unit uncovered a growing members of club consisting of investors with exclusive access to housing listings the average home buyer cannot easily see. This is a thing that's been going on forever. But I will say, I do not think that any neighborhood should have more than, I'm gonna be even generous. No more than 20%. I would love it to be just 10% of investment homes in a neighborhood. Because honestly, and I mean, if we're going to be honest, rental properties are not taken care of the same degree as traditional homes that people are staying in, as like you had said earlier. Even with my own renters, we've had problems. I'm like, are you going to mow the grass or not? That's how we got them to drop the rent, by the way. We're like, we'll drop the rent if you'll start mowing the lawn, but we have
Heck
to
yeah.
stay on them. We have to stay on them to
Yeah.
keep it mowed. You know, they don't pick up after themselves. They leave weird stuff in the yard because It's not their house. They
Well,
don't worry about it the same
and,
way.
let's say like it's not even that, right? Like if it's your own house and it starts making a funny noise or the plumbing starts knocking in the wall or something, you are immediately going to figure out what in the hell is happening. When it's not your house,
Mhm.
you're like, oh, I know these. We're not supposed to flush these flushable wipes, but I'm going to go ahead and flush them anyways. And then next thing you know, like you're replacing the whole main line all the way out to the street just because of something that you wouldn't do in your own house. You just know you don't have to pay for it, so you don't care, right?
When we had a septic system, we put that in the lease agreement that if we have a problem and it was because of flushable wipes, they were paying for it.
It's in all. It's I think it's in most lease agreements. Here's something I want to come back to because I want to explore this with you a little bit, and I because I think it's. I love what you say about capping investors. I also think it's a really easy thing to say without having
No,
to
it
put
it
any.
could be
Okay, so then let me ask you this because we already have a version of this with condos and the FHA, right? Like you cannot get an FHA loan on a condo complex that is more than 49% renters because FHA just won't loan if it's if it's 51% tenant occupied, right? So we already have that.
right.
And the me selling, I sell a ton of condos, and I have sellers sometimes who get jammed up by this, right? Meaning either they can't rent a property that they should be able to rent because they're just young people who want to rent a condo and move on to a house, right? Or it's difficult for them to sell a property because it doesn't go FHA financing because of the investors, right? Or there's already so many investors that they can't sell to another investor. An investor won't buy it because they can't rent it, right? How do you decide who the 10% are? Because there might be somebody across the street from me who gets the benefit of selling to an investor for whatever reason that I now can't take advantage of because he was the person who got us to that 10% mark, right? How is that free economy for the homeowner? I get it. I get it screws the investor over, but you're screwing over the actual homeowner who has a home to sell that they should be able to get every penny they can for it because they made a wise financial decision. And this is the conversation we get into sometimes. We want to stop the big bad wolf, but the big bad wolf is buying these from your next door neighbor who you actually want to see succeed. So how do you even begin to unravel who's the one who gets to sell and who isn't?
I will say that in a, um, single family development is gonna be a different different, down like a different group of people than the people that are living in condominiums. The condominiums themselves
Agreed.
are taken care of by the condominium association.
Agreed.
A single family development is not taken care of by the homeowners association. You have yards to maintain. The houses need to be pressure washed. These are all things that would normally be taken care of by the condos association. Those individual things would be taken care of by but the homeowner. People that are buying or especially large investors buy these homes in mass. They do not take care of them in mass. They fix them up to get them on
Mhm.
the market to rent them out, and then they walk away from it and hope nothing happens. That's pretty much it. They like these big
I would venture to
companies.
say there's brokerages out there that we can't name because of our fiduciary that do the exact same thing, except they're selling
Absolutely.
that asset to people, right? I don't agree with you. It's an
Absolutely.
amazing idea. I just don't even know how to begin to work out the logistics of who is the person in the neighborhood who gets to sell and who is the person who doesn't get to sell. And I feel like it'd probably be pretty easy to end around the fact that you're an investor with some creative financing and creative LLC usage.
Right, and, like, there's, you can I don't know. When it comes to condos, I always have there always is a problem. Every time
Yeah.
you go into a condo association, there's always some kinda
Anytime
issue.
there's an HOA, I think there's some kind of issue. Yeah.
Right, right, but I worry about people with their individual homes that, like, really, this is for most people, this is the most expensive thing that they own, and at the time that they retire, this is the one thing that has made them the most cash. I
Yes.
mean, in if we're taking everybody as a whole. So,
Agreed.
if they have invested and put on all this time, effort, and energy into keeping and maintaining this home for over 40 years, and now they're ready to sell it, and everybody around them is renters that have not had the same have not taken care of their homes in the neighborhood the same. Now their home isn't worth what it could have been because it was bought out by investors and full of people that don't care. So, I mean, that's what I'm concerned with. And even the owners associations, they can and they have been fighting back by saying we're not allowing anymore. You can do an addendum or amendment to your covenants saying that we're not going to have any more investors, or we're only going to have 10% investment firms being able to buy in our HOA. And they has to, when you're purchasing it, it's part of the approval of the HOA. Seems like one of those things that kind of sucks because HOAs can be kind of a headache
Yeah.
everywhere, but they also can be a really big benefit everywhere as well.
Yeah.
Mark has a question. Have you studied the work of the recreational resort cottages? It seems likely they have some small, tiny homes and some bigger ones too. I have not looked at recreation. Let me pull out my phone. I'm gonna pull out this. I'm gonna put it on my list. Okay, notes. I'm putting them on my list because I look up every single company, and like some of the coolest companies. This is the saddest part. Some of the coolest visionary companies that I get really excited about when I start digging into like what they're doing. It's always a concept. They have a lot of great drawings and some really good computer animations, but they're just crowdfunding and they're not like nothing's gonna happen. Like I'm like, when you have a house, let me know. So I'm putting this down. Rec oh, Eddie, put that back up.
Recreational resort, and I missed the
Resort
last, cottages.
cottages. Cottages. I will say this too about cottages. This is one of those names that they kind of like, it's just a scotch bigger than what a tiny home could be. But the price point on a lot of what, I'm not saying this particular company, but this is how like the builders are like, welcome to our tiny cottages. And you're like, oh, fantastic. And it's like $375 per square foot. And you're like, is it made of gold? Like, your cottage is it's a 800-foot house, like, oh my gosh. Because I did a video a while back with Ellen Pitts about the cottages. And yeah, like, look, they have high-end stuff in them. They're really cute. They're really small. Oh, these ones look like they're on wheels. So maybe it's just a step up from a tiny home. But these ones were like house cottages. And those things were pricey. I don't know. I don't want to pay $400 per square foot for a house, for a small home. Let me see. Eddie's got some other ones. Oh, this is their website. Oh, okay. I like the tall cabinetry. I mean, it looks nice. I'd have to check them out, but they're real houses. Thank goodness. They're not like computer rendering. So that's a good bonus. This looks like a legitimate website. So that's a plus too. And it doesn't look like they're crowdfunding. So those are all good signs just from a glance.
Is that the thing with a lot of those tiny home companies? They're still in the crowdfunding source, and it's all still an idea, and they're just
Yeah,
putting
it's all
ideas of the
hosed.
homes out, and yeah.
It's a hose. It's a like there's a big one out there, and I got sucked in for a hot minute because they kept saying that they were building all these factories everywhere. So I had somebody go out to the area that they're building a factory, and they're like, it's a tent in the desert that has their name on it. There's nothing here. And I'm like, you're joking. They're like, no. So then I had somebody else go out there. They're like, no, it's just woods. There's nothing out here. And I'm like, they in their website, it says we're breaking ground on 27 factories. Did you even buy the land?
So they
Like,
haven't been on any of it yet.
and so I can't help myself. So I called a real estate agent in this one specific area, and I'm like, hey, who owns this land in this specific area? Their name wasn't on it. That
Wow.
company's name wasn't on it. So that makes me very sad because they have like webinars every week telling people to invest in this, like get in now. And I'm like, oh my God, that sounds like
There's
a like
so much.
MLM.
There's so
It
much
sounds
due
like,
diligence you have to do on that stuff. That's crazy.
I know, but I can't like I have to see a house. In order for me to even think about it, I have to see a
Yep.
house.
I believe it.
Brian G says, question, do you think the Fed should change its policy for low cost housing by supporting low interest loans, only low cost housing, and raising rates for expensive housing to boost the housing supply? Ooh, that's a tricky question. Let's dive into this a little bit. I think there should be government programs for people like school teachers, firefighters, police officers, medical personnel. Those people, I'm talking like nurses and everything, they've had a huge decrease in their annual income than they had in years past. And then they should have some kind of financial support or boost in order for them to encourage them to live in the area that they work. Because a lot of the times where they work is too expensive for them to live. And I don't want my firefighter or police officer to live 3 towns over. I want them to live in the town that they work. So I think there should be incentives for those kinds of people from the federal government. That's my opinion. What do you think?
I agree.
Matt?
I agree. And here's the thing is I think there's a lot of great real estate agents and that Kristina could even connect people with in your area that do offer those hero type programs, right? Where even if it's not built in, I know we have something like that where for teachers, and all those people you just described, right? I do think the government does try to do this a little bit. We do have VA loans for our veterans and military people. We do have FHA loans for first-time homebuyers with much lower requirements. The interest rates aren't better on them typically, but the requirements to get the home loan, the intent is you can come with a lower down payment and have maybe a more banged up credit score because you're either new at starting your credit or maybe your credit got a little messy. So I do think they have some of those programs. Absolutely. Look, I'm never going to come on here or go anywhere else and say like just tax the rich either, because I think that's terrible. I don't think just because somebody can afford $1 million, $1.5 million house that they're the worst human who's ever lived, and they should therefore have to pay a higher interest rate than somebody else because they're buying a more affordable home. I do think that there could have stand to be on people who are buying large packages of homes. You know, the stuff that Kristina talks about with the investors and those types of things. If there were different interest rates for situations like that, I could see it. I don't think the price of the home, look, man, I'll take it to kind of a personal level. I think we think just because sometimes people are struggling financially, it means that they automatically need a hand up and they must be the greatest person in the world and they're just struggling. And because somebody else has money, they must be the devil and they took it from somebody else and they don't deserve what they have. And that's not the case in either one of those situations. And so I struggle to put a blanket. I think there are plenty of people who've gotten themselves in terrible financial situations that don't deserve a hand up because they spent years train wrecking their finances and their credit due to poor personal decisions. And I think there are people who can own beautiful, huge homes who are probably some of the nicest people you've ever met and spend the majority of their money helping other humans. And they would absolutely should get any benefit they can get from any taxes break or anything like that. So I don't want to throw a blanket on it, but yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of there being options for people who struggle to get into homes, because this market, more than anything, if you didn't own a home already, the gap between you and owning a home just got wider, assuming you want to stay in the exact same place you currently live. Right?
You know,
the home price did just go up dramatically and put homeownership a little bit further away for some people, for sure.
I think, and that because we touched on school a little bit, and you were talking about how, like, you know, these people should know, like, the narrative between, you know, good and bad, evil, you know, who's got money, who doesn't. I will say that I don't think that we educate people enough at a younger age to understand credit history, and what they should be doing with their finances. No, we don't teach about stocks. We don't teach about real estate. We don't, all these things are important to build up your individual wealth and independence so you don't have to depend on programs. You got to start with the education first. If we had that, like we used to have accounting in high school. That isn't a class. That is not a class. My kids do not know how to balance a checkbook. That is not a class anymore. They don't know they were never taught anything about stocks. They don't,
I honestly
everything
don't
is
think I
dependent
was
on
either.
us as parents.
Yes.
Is to do it. But I was 1992 Roswell Hornets. Thank you. Go Roswell.
I mean,
We were taught in high
but here's the
school.
thing is, you and I were almost, I mean, you and I were almost in high school at the exact same time. And I was not the most studious student in high school. So that conversation could have been being had, and I just wasn't paying attention. So I definitely don't want to put it on the Marshalltown, Iowa high school system by any means. But I will say, like, I do think that's a huge box. I do think there's a big gap in financial illiteracy, and I also think there's a big gap in what people think success looks like. I personally know many people whose net worth is over $1 million, and if they walked in and sat down next to you, you would not know that at all, right? Like, I do think and those people got that way just by making incrementally better decisions day after day. And over the span of 30 years, you look up, and that 1% better decision has put you miles ahead of the person who was making those terrible decisions at the beginning, right? I do think corporate entities and corporate greediness and things like that is a huge problem. But it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. But there are plenty of people out there who may have, by what we would deem wealth, right? If you just go by world metrics, that are just out there. They still have the same type of bills. They still have the same percentage of risk that other people have in things. And if you own 3 houses and 2 renters decide to stop paying, you're just as broke as the person who owns 1 house and does. You know what I mean? Like, it's all kind of relative, you know? And so I always hate the idea of just, if you've got a few houses and make a little bit of money, that somehow that should translate to you being screwed over more. We've got to figure out a way to separate those two things.
I never talk about investors. Whenever I'm talking about investors, I'm not talking about the mom and pop.
I know you
that
are. I
own
know
a
you
few.
are.
No, I'm only talking like the big names. Like every time Blackstone, BlackRock, Vanguard.
Agreed.
There's a bunch of them, but I feel like they get together and like, okay, how can we screw America today? You know, like I feel like they're all like little Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. They're like,
I know this. Go ahead.
they'll change one thing and then all four of them change them at the same time. I'm like, I feel like they really do vacation together on their yachts and they park next to each other and come up with more evil ways how they can mess us up
I'm,
as
I'm not
human
I'm not
beings.
tinfoil hat guy. I'm not tinfoil hat guy, but I do think that
Mhm.
when, especially if we're talking about these large like BlackRock and all of these guys, if you're talking about the 10 or 20 people at the top of those four companies being able, having the ability to kind of change and do things, I fundamentally believe that's very possible. I think you get a
Mhm.
small enough group of influential people together that can affect change negatively just like that. I wouldn't doubt if those conversations happen at all. I think
Yeah,
it'd
I
be
don't
foolish
either.
to think they don't.
Does anybody have any questions? You can throw one up on the screen, Eddie, if there's any questions, because Matt and I are here and we can talk about the housing supply. One of the things that I was seeing too is that people were talking about that because of the inflation, it's going to make the housing prices drop. I'm like, how did make that make sense? But okay.
Here's the thing is people are obsessed with being right, and what they'll do is they'll be like housing prices are going to drop, and then if it happens within 36 months they'll be like, oh, see, I told you. And it's like I can say
I know.
anything and then be like I was right 2 years later.
Yeah, I know,
You
eventually be
know?
right. Should
Yeah.
I convert my unfinished basement into an accessory dwelling unit, which is also known as an ADU? And I already checked with my local code and I can do it. Plus, I'm barely home anyways. Yes, yeah,
Heck yeah.
absolutely. Create an income producing property on your property. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Just I would do some due diligence in the fact of how you're going to secure your own home in order for, like, if it's in your basement, how are they going? They're not going to be able to get through the door into your home, I guess is the what I'm trying to say. There's
Into the
like you
actual
want it
personal residence. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right. You're gonna have to make sure there's access to their apartment downstairs. There, you got to check with your fire marshal to make sure that there is enough.
That's
what are they
good. Egress.
e egress, yeah,
Ingress
egress,
and
you gotta
egress. Yeah.
thank you. You gotta make sure with that, make sure that that's all up to code, but if you can find a way to make an income property on your property that pays for your mortgage, that's fine. I will also say, though, make sure that your mortgage company and insurance company, check with those 2 people, 2 companies as well, to make sure that you're allowed to with the type of mortgage you have and your insurance, find out how much that's going to increase with having a renter below your home.
Oh boy. Sometimes I love the
What?
comment section. Just the comment
Oh,
section. Sometimes I always
I
monitor it. You know how I
oh,
am
I
about when people get rowdy in here, dude. And I'll just call them straight out. City
oh,
Barbs, you seem like a really nice person. I can tell you right now, unless you've walked around the corner to the Minute Mart in Garland, Texas, and spent the brown paper food stamp, you don't know what I know. So just sit over in the corner and zip it, City Barbs. Jeez
ooh.
Louise.
Ooh, I will say this, I do have, I have moderators in my chat, and I got a nasty gram from
Yeah.
somebody that said they had erased their comments, and I'm like, I trust my moderators. Sometimes, yes, my moderators get a little heavy-handed, like, they'll see a word and they think that the person was being snarky, but they didn't read the whole entire comment, but they were being facetiously snarky,
Yeah. Yeah.
they were being facetiously snarky, so but in this case, it wasn't the case. And like,
I just
there's
think it's
this,
easy. I think it's easy when somebody disagrees with you to just assume you know everything about their life, right? Like it's just such a silly thing to because somebody has like a different thought. Because here's my thing is I very much like I very much think that there is way too much in real estate that is beyond the control of real estate agents and the average consumer. And there are too many things that we have going on right now in real estate that are affecting consumers at a huge level. And I'm also oblivious to the fact that there's economics involved in people purchasing some of these houses. And the housing market that we're seeing here isn't advantageous for everybody, but it doesn't change the fact that when I write offers on a $575,000 house, it does go for 700,000. That doesn't have anything to do with how I feel. Those are just the facts of what I have seen happen. And thank God that's slowing down, but I don't know. Like I said, it
we
does
don't have
suck,
that
but
in
it doesn't
Baton
change
Rouge.
anything. Yeah.
We don't
And
have
I don't
that in
think that's
Baton Rouge.
happening everywhere either, but
Yeah. So if you were considering Dallas and you found out it'd be a little pricey, come to Baton Rouge.
that's just the Frisco market. It's a little bit extra right now for sure.
Lori has a question. She says, I own a home. I barely have enough cash to build a modular home. I'm getting old and I don't know if it would, if I should keep paying rent or build at the all-time high. Who knows if it will get any cheaper?
Would you I was talking to a guy about this today, and I wouldn't do this because I don't really know how.
Hmm.
But trying to time any market, I think, is really scary, right? Like trying to time the real estate market, when to sell and then when to jump back in, is really scary. And if that's being said, and we can assume that renting, and I don't know if this person rents or not, but if you
Mhm.
are renting, renting's probably going to always be worse than buying in most markets. Um, I think whenever you can jump into the market is probably the time to do it. And I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but I think for most people, if you're trying to time the market and you don't do that every single day, and you're not an expert at it, and you don't have your Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours of mastery, you are more likely to screw it up than not. So why not, instead of riding the wave of the stock market, why not just invest in the S&P every month the exact same amount and ride it out over time? And I say the same thing about home ownership. Why not invest in yourself instead of trying to time the market for when it comes down? Why not invest in yourself? Put that money into a house as opposed to rent, and then just ride it out. And if 3 years from now the market's not where you want it to be and home prices went down, just don't sell. Unless life is making you sell due to illness or emergency, or those types of things that happen, just don't sell. Just continue to ride it out and trust that cycles will happen like they've always happened, and you'll be back up on the upswing at some point, right? I think everybody just looks at their current today's wealth and today's money and gauges that's how they're doing. And I just feel like it's a much longer term play with real estate specifically than that.
Agreed. Agreed. And I always say everything washes out in about 7 years. If you bought too
Yeah.
high, it all washes out in 7 years. If you bought
Yeah.
too low, in 7 years, it all balances out.
Yep. Yep. I know for a
That's what
fact
I
you're
always
never
say.
getting that rent back. That's the only thing I do know.
Yes. Yeah, and I like the rent. That's what's killing me inside. How much rent has gone up.
The house
It
next
is
door, the house next door to me rented last year for like, I think $1,900. It just rented for $2,500 a month. That is $30,000 a year somebody is essentially allocating to paying rent now.
a friend of mine took the opportunity because he's not married and doesn't have children to take his remote work job and move to Miami. He moves to Miami, he gets a great condo, spending $3,000 a month, which is pricey, but again, he's single, doesn't have kids, so this is, like, right up his alley. He got his lease renewal, it is $5,000 a month, and he's like, "Do I wanna pay it? Do I?" But then he was like, "If I don't pay it," like, he's like, "I really like being here." He said, "But so if I don't pay it, I have nowhere to go. There's nowhere else around this specific area that's for rent that's any cheaper." And
And
I was
everybody's
like,
wealth building strategy has to work for them. I never
"Oh."
say, I do think there are alternative living situations and roommates and things like that that work for some people, right? Like, I just think when we're talking about the masses as a whole, there's, I think like condos and townhomes. I have younger clients who they just bought a house, and it's a young married couple, and they have two other couples living with them, right? Like that's just
Mhm.
how they've decided to do it in like this 5 bedroom larger house. And it works great for everybody. I could never in a million years do that, right? Like that wouldn't work for me, but it works great for those people. And they're all going to build wealth because they're willing to make some sacrifices that I'm just not willing to make, you know?
But there are some areas that are now making it illegal for you to have roommates in your own home.
I have not heard
No
of
lie.
this.
Yeah, this is in
How is
Kansas,
that
and
possible?
I somebody actually brought it up to my attention on this live stream, and then Eddie had pulled it up. Maybe Eddie can pull it up again. But in the meantime, we have a question. Do you think it's still better to refinance when you have equity to do renovation than use cash? I assume you're able to tap into either cash or equity. What do you say, Mr. Matt?
Um, do you think it's still better to refinance? One, I don't think it's really great in this market to refinance unless you really, I mean, like, look, with interest rates where they are right now, just going up a couple of percent, you would have to tell me what your current interest rate is and what you're going to use the cash to do. If you really want to do those renovations for yourself, to stay in the home for a while, to make it the way that you want it, I say, okay, go ahead. Right? Like that's, I don't know what the dollar value is of you having the home that you want, but I do know what the dollar value is of having, for me, having the experiences in my life that I want and coming home to a place that I love, right? Like that's worth money that I'm not going to see on paper. If you're doing a refi just to take out equity to maybe do renovations, again, I would get a qualified person to come by and tell you which renovations are going to net you the most money, because you might dump that money into something that I wouldn't at all. Um,
And
are
look
you
into
paying
a
down debt?
HELOC.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, look into a HELOC. Are you looking to pay down
Yeah,
debt? There's so
into a
many things.
HELOC.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree
because
with
the interest rates are high, like, the thing is that then you're not having to refinance your whole entire loan package. You're taking out some of your equity. You have a different kind of loan, terms over here, look into a HELOC. That's what I say.
Yeah,
If you're,
I agree.
but I don't ever want to use my cash. If I can find a way not to use my cash, I'm not using my cash.
And I do agree. And I don't think you'll find a single truly wealthy person that pays a whole lot of cash for stuff. So I think that's the right move. I just say it depends on what you're trying to do. You know, if you're adding square footage, that's a great value add. If you're doing the kitchen, master bathroom, that's a great value add. If you're, you know, updating your tile to wood floors, that's okay, but probably need to do that for you. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. A pool too. A pool is for you.
a
Outdoor
pool is for
kitchen
you.
is for you.
You talk about the biggest markup right now, at least here locally. Geez Louise. What used to be like a $20,000 pool is now like an $80,000 pool. It's just the
Absolutely.
most ridiculous thing in the world, but make
Yeah.
your money, guys.
$30,000 pools here are now $60,000. I'm like, I'm not getting a pool. Forget it, guys.
No, I'll just live next door to somebody who does have one. Make friends.
Sarah Mason, it's my actual name. That's her username. Love that. Marion Oaks in Florida was supposed to be the next Villages. It became a corporate owned after the 2008 crash. Now they even have a sign that says owned by Deltona Corporation.
I think after 2008, we had that happen a little bit. We had a couple of condo towers, like really expensive condo towers going up in Dallas at that time. And there was one that was supposed to not ever allow you to rent it out. It was supposed to be exclusive, purchase only. And as soon as 2008 hit, they started selling to people who wanted to rent it out. And the people who already bought in were like, hey, I thought we weren't renting this. They were like, oh yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that now. You know,
that like some crazy stuff happened here. There's a subdivision that's right down the road from us, and somebody had this grand idea. They were going to build homes that were, the starting point was $500,000. At that time, there wasn't a lot of people in our income brackets that our average income brackets would be able to afford it. But also the lots were twice the size. They had put in the infrastructure like nobody's business. They had these beautiful bricked roundabouts. They had done all these beautiful wide streets, you know, like this thing was going to be done to the nines. The crash happened. He sold it all to a like median house builder. And they built their homes. They sold them like hotcakes. But there's 760 houses that are pretty much look exactly the same. I'm like, all the time I drive through there, I'm like, don't ever get on a golf cart after you've been drinking and trying to find your home. Make sure you put a red ribbon on your mailbox to find out which house is yours, because they all have the same peaked roof. They all have the same brick. You know, so they variate the colors by the front doors or the garage doors are just slightly different,
We have a couple communities like that up north here that are very, very similar to that, where it's just like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's just house after house.
There was only 5 floor plans.
Yep.
5 floor plans. Yep. But as it got old, like as the subdivision started getting older and they were closing out, they started upping the look of them. You know, they did change a little bit, but they've still kind of like, you know, instantly that's the builder. One builder for the whole 760 lots. So Eddie, did you happen to find that? I think it was in Kansas City, Missouri, if I'm correct, that the renting a room or part of your property was now illegal. You couldn't have roommates. Having roommates was illegal.
It's so interesting. Like I do know HOAs can control short-term rentals like Airbnb. That's something like when you're doing short-term rentals, you gotta be really careful on, but I've never heard of that.
Yeah, we pulled up the article that day. I didn't make this up. I didn't dream it. It wasn't a fever dream because I do have those. Question: 3-bedroom, 1,840 farmhouse on 26 areas with a suitable VA loan, just refinanced at 118K, 2.25, past VA inspection, negative. The cemeteries in the back. Hey, at least your neighbors are quiet. I'd be all over it. I'd be all over that. I much prefer the non-living than the living. So, you know, they're not going to complain about the noise at 3 a.m. in your backyard because you had a group of friends over. So, Kansas City voted unanimously to ban co-living rentals, effectively making roommates illegal in some zoning districts. See?
So what if you are engaged to somebody and cohabitating prior to being married?
Well, that is just not right. Why would you do something
Oh, I
like that?
know, I know. So that's
That
everybody. Let's
no,
just say hypothetically
clutching
that
my
somebody would do
pearls.
something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, and I'm sure there's some more words in here about it. That's crazy.
All right, in Kansas, a city in Kansas has banned co-living, effective in making it legal to have a group of unrelated roommates split the cost of rent in a single-family residential zoning districts. How are they going to catch you on this, by the way?
Oh
Shawnee,
God.
located in Johnson County, unanimously voted earlier last week to ban the living arrangement by an 8 to 0 vote by the city council, the Kansas City Star reported. As rental houses prices climbed across the country, people have turned to roommates to help balance the costs. The Shawnee ordinance said that a group of people is co-living if it includes at least
Four
4
adults.
adults who are unrelated. One adult needs to be unrelated for the entire group to be classified as unrelated according to the Kansas City Star.
So in
Mm.
this scenario, you could be living with your future wife and her
Mhm.
parents because maybe they need to, whatever. Who cares what the reason is? It wouldn't even matter. And you would be
Mhm.
breaking this ordinance based off of that, which that is like the most mundane, boring living situation in the history of the world, right?
Who's
Like,
gonna
and
turn
that,
you in for that?
but maybe this isn't. I don't know. Shawnee, Kansas, nobody lives near there. I don't want to get into political today, but is this a pearl clutching society from the standpoint of like, is this just one of those things? It's just a conservative local law where they're just like, nope, we're just not having that here because the scenario I just described would fall under the rules of which is a problem, and that doesn't sound like an exciting thing to me at all. Yet it would still somehow break their weird law. I don't know. That's crazy to me.
You know what? I just thought about this. I did like, your brain kind of forgets things. But in this scenario, my husband and I would be in trouble because we didn't live together before we got married, but because Eddie went to the police academy was around the corner. He stayed at my parents' house on the opposite side next to my parents' bedroom, by the way, because we were young, they
No,
were like,
sure,
we're going to
sure.
help you out. But,
Yep, yep.
so he stayed over there. But in this scenario, my parents would have been in trouble
A
because
hundred
he was,
percent.
oh,
Well, oh,
this
serious,
thing always goes
serious.
off.
I turned that off. Yeah, there's no way.
Oh my God. She's a pain in the rear end.
Yeah,
Throw
that's a
her in
pretty
there.
bananas one that I can't even imagine. You're definitely counting on the neighbors ratting people out because I don't know how you would even possibly begin to police that.
Ugh, I don't know. I don't have time to be policing neighbors like this. All right,
No,
this one right here, this
it's a
kid.
good one.
I know, I love it. Question: how do you distinguish between renters and family who are you are helping out? Exactly. You could easily say, "Well, this is my cousin. These
Anything.
are my cousins."
Yeah, and
Because
that's how you
like
get
your
on the
cousins
religion.
have different last names than you.
Yeah, they can come and
But
start
you don't have to
asking for.
prove
That's just crazy.
birth certificates. You want a diagram of my family tree? Golly, man, people are crazy. Long story short, love that one. How are your interest rate predictions going? Well, my interest rate predictions at the beginning of this year, no lie, I said we were gonna end up around the 5% mark, and people thought I was crazy. Here we are now. We're over 5%. So
Yep.
now if I'm going to pull out my crystal ball in my imagination where we're going to end up about 7.2. That's my brain. I don't know if I'm right. This is literally my guessing at that point.
Well, I definitely think we're going to see a little bit more. One, they've already said that, and but I do think we kind of the current kind of trouble we're in. These interest rates, I think, were already baked into this over the past 2 months. That's why we saw such an increase over the past 60 days. That now they'll stay here for a little bit, and then as we move into Q3 and Q4, I think is when you'll start seeing that jumping up.
Yeah. What do you think? Like this is just a guess.
I've
Like
already
what do
seen
you
my
think?
first 6.25, so I have no doubt I'll see seven before the end of the year. I've already seen a six and a
Okay.
quarter, so I know
Mhm.
for a fact I'll see over seven before the end of the year.
All right. So we're on the same page.
Yeah,
But
100%.
when I said 5%, people like I had a group of real estate agents there. They were, no, no
Well,
way.
no,
It would
because they don't
never
want you to be
happen.
right. You know why real estate agents don't want you to be right when you're saying something like that? Because it's going to cause them to have to sit down and reevaluate the smoke they've been blowing for the past 24 months and do something different in their business. Like I will clown real estate agents as quick as I'll clown anybody else. I get so
Me
annoyed with
too.
our industry and the way that they approach things. And it's just this whole desire to be right keeps you from actually being data driven. And I can't stand that, man. It's okay to have
I
been
ac
wrong 6 months ago. Stuff changes. It's okay. You know?
I had a young guy say that, I think we are, a sharing economy and that young people really don't wanna own homes in the sharing economy. They wanna be just renters. I literally jumped through the screen and thought he was an idiot, like, I was
I
so
think
flabbergasted by that I actually cut out that clip and put it in a video. I couldn't believe he said that out loud. I'm like,
I
"You have
can't
no
believe that
idea
we
what you're
just
talking
think.
about."
It's so funny that as we get older, we just forget what we were like when we were younger. Like like I just, oh yeah, 25-year-old version of Matt just didn't care about his future, just wanted to never ever own anything and just hopefully work until the day he was dead. Like that's just because you're in your mid 20s doesn't mean that you're just an idiot and you don't see the value of like home ownership. It's such a silly blanket statement we started slapping on millennials that I just ugh. And I'm not even a
But
millennial, it's
the
just a silly one.
Well, he was literally just mouthpiecing something he had already
That's all it
heard,
is. It's
you
always
know?
anybody who says that is just mouthpiecing somebody else. It's not an
Yeah,
intelligent thought to be like
because
millennials don't want to own homes. It's so generic. It's crazy.
I know, and then, like, in a lot of people's heads too, they don't understand that millennials are in their 40s, people. They're not kids that are
That
living
is
in their
true.
parents' basement.
I'm barely not one, and I just turned 43. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they're not children.
no,
They're not kids. They've
no.
established lives and careers.
Guess what? They want
I
to get married
live
and have kids too. Ugh.
Ooh, that's craziness. Craziness, I'm telling you. All they want is avocado toast and Starbucks coffees. That's it. All right. I live close to Swanee, Kansas. It is an uppity pearl clutching area, conservative area where the median price income is $72,000 a year. I just don't know how, like, honest to God, they really must have some people that are sitting out in their, like, little SUVs driving around going, "I saw that car there 3 times in a row, and I know June and Barry only have 2 children, and one of
Yep.
them's not of legal driving age, and I've seen 4 cars over there, so I wanna know what's going on."
Yep.
There's gotta be a lot of that.
Yep.
Ugh. Oh, get me out.
No,
Like,
I'd be out of that neighborhood quick.
the for sale sign would go up tomorrow. Like, get out of here. Closet Hunter says, as a realtor, do you think America has become for sell to the highest bidder? It seems like there is no limits to what they're willing to sell land, property. It's people, lot of laughs. Yeah, well, it's always been sell to the highest bidder. Always has been. And I'll let you answer this too, Matt, but I don't fault sellers when they are given all these offers and there's this one offer that's sitting there and it's like $100,000 more than you were even anticipating of your asking price of the house. And sure, these other people have families, but how can somebody turn down an extra $100,000? I personally can't turn down an extra $100,000 that I was anticipating on getting on my home. I would be very thankful to have that as part of my retirement or whatever that I would want to get for my next house. So I don't fault the sellers. I know a lot of people want to blame the real estate agents for the prices of these homes. The real estate agents price the homes on what we believe the houses will sell for. And the market determines how much those homes will sell for. If it's priced too high, and the market will tell you it's too high because you get no offers. If it's priced too low, you get tons and tons of offers. So no, the real estate agents are not to blame for the prices of homes. So that's what I have to say. Go ahead, Matt.
I agree with you completely. I mean, and I'll say it practically in two ways that I can just prove it almost immediately. I have a home that's been on the market right now that I'm listing for a client that has been on the market for 21 days. Do you think realistically, if I was dictating the price of that home and could sell it forever I wanted to, that the house would still be sitting there after 21 days? Of course it wouldn't be.
Right.
Like it's so obvious that I don't control that by the fact that every single home I sell doesn't sell in one day because of it. You know what I mean? And you're dead on. I think it's really easy for people to I don't think anybody's doing this here, but I think it's easy sometimes to look at the thing as a whole and just say it's greed. But we have to break it down to the individual house that's selling across the street from you, and the house that most likely that house, while we can sit here and blame BlackRock and all these other things, that is real. They're also still not buying the majority of the houses. The majority of the houses are being bought and sold by people just like you and I, who are moving up or moving down. You know, every home in your neighborhood is not owned by some entity. If you go to the tax rolls and look at it, most of them are owned by John and Jane Smith, right? Like almost everyone to a T. And so These are regular people who are just as worried about their retirement, who just as worried about their family making it, who are just as worried about their monthly bills and the things that they're doing, that are buying and selling these homes. So of course they're not going to take less money than they can get for it, just like no reasonable human would. Somebody comes and offers you 600 for your $500,000 house, you'd be like, no, you know what? I think it's only worth 525. That's what you give me. If you are that human being, I applaud you and you're amazing. But most of us are not going to do that, right? So there are factors that are driving prices up that I think are nefarious for sure. I also think at the end of the day, for the most part, it is people just like you and I, just like the next door neighbor that you like that's sitting right down the street from you. And those are the people who are getting the price for their home, and they're having to turn around, take that money, and then spend it on another home that is overpriced. And then that person moves and does it on another home. And now 3 homes have been sold at what we consider a greedy, inflated price. And it was just 3 people moving due to the circumstances they had to move in. Right.
Right, right. And I will also say that like the majority of these big corporations that are buying homes that we consider the starter home.
Mhm.
They're in that starter home area, the like the little 3-bedroom, 2 baths, 1,800 square foot homes in those areas. They're not buying the 6-bedroom house for a large family. Those aren't the ones that they're scooping up.
No.
So that's the market manipulation comes from those smaller homes.
It is, and I think that's really worth noticing too. It doesn't make there are very few products that make sense to buy expensive luxury and then sell only to expensive luxury, right? It makes
Mhm.
sense that the homes in the majority of the price points in whatever area you are in is going to be the one that is going to be jacked up the most, because those investors are also looking for the homes between 250 and 400 that are 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, that are going to appeal to the masses, because then they have the biggest buyer pool to go then out and resell it to or potentially rent it to.
Yeah.
I've got clients right now who the interest rates affected them. They're still in the market. They're still moving here, but they've essentially started looking at 3-bedroom houses now, when a 4-bedroom would fit their family better, but they've had to just change the size of the home they're looking for in order to make it work. And that sucks. Like, I do hate
Yeah.
that, right? Like, they're gonna have 2 kids jammed in a room. That wasn't what their goal was. And life is still telling them they have to move here. This is just what their next step is, regardless, right? So we wrote 2 offers this
Right.
morning. We'll see what happens.
Well, it's just weird to see a neighborhood that just 7 years ago was like 210, 220,000. Now is 310, 320,000. You're like,
We've got a suburb that's no more than 20 minutes from where I am. We were there last night. That essentially half of it is built on the old Dallas landfill, right?
Jesus,
And
stop.
and it's fine. There's plenty of houses there. It's been built up now for decades. But there was a time there when people were spending less than $100,000 for a house in there, and they're like, "That's too much." That stuff right now is selling for over $300,000. And one of my business
Insanity.
partners was like, "We stopped buying in there years ago because we thought at 100 grand those houses were overpriced, and now they're selling for 350. Same old
Mhm.
Fox and Jacob houses built on the landfill." Right? Like,
Yeah,
just it's crazy. So
I know. I know. All right. Do we have any more questions, Eddie, you want to put up on the screen for me, please? Pretty, pretty, please. Pretty, please. I'm excited to go to Boxabl. I have to tell you, it's
I
gonna be
love it.
great.
You do so much cool stuff when it comes to all like your YouTube stuff.
Yeah, like real estate is fun, but not like what I do. This is really fun.
Oh, this story right here. Is this about them buying ancestry.com or whatever?
Fact check. Did asset manager Blackstone buy America's DNA? Oh no.
So
Oh,
here's the
Eddie,
thing.
with those tinfoil hats time. Let's
No,
go
this is
ahead.
I might be with Eddie on this one. So I do have an Ancestry DNA account. I did get my Ancestry DNA account. Yeah, it is Ancestry. That one. I did get that
Yeah.
done. I got it done for my son as well. So if people don't know, my beautiful boy is adopted. And so I wanted to just get a little bit of more information on, because we don't have that. And so I did both of ours. And then I saw this. This is the scary part about the DNA thing, is they have this on file, and BlackRock just bought it for $5 billion.
Blackstone.
Or
Blackstone. It's
Blackstone.
the
Yeah,
same.
so Blackstone. Yeah.
They're Blackstone and BlackRock are basically twin brothers. They
Yeah.
do almost exactly the same thing, but they are two separate companies. Claims surfaced online that the investment firm Blackstone now has access to genetic information of Ancestry.com customers after it purchased a family history for $4.7 billion. That's how important that information is to them. That's kind of weird. While the deal struck into 2020, the theory has recently spread across forums, including conspiracy theories focused on subreddits and Twitter pages. Though it is not clear what sparked the latest revival of the narratives, recent posts containing such claims have been viewed thousands of times.
I'm kind of like Debbie in the comment section. Like, I'm not necessarily worried about it, because like, look, anything you're going to go do with my DNA to like trick me or somehow screw me over, like, I guess I'll just live with. I mean, I've
I
already
don't
got
want
to
to
deal
come
with
back
two.
though.
Yeah,
Like,
I've already got
I
to
don't
deal with.
want another version of me to come back. I've done this once. I don't need to do this
Well,
again.
and I was just here. I was just here to say what this kid said. It's just about data. It's the data grab. It's the same reason Zillow wanted to buy Dot Loop. It's the same. It's just all we live in an era. NFTs are a perfect example of this. That we don't need to physically be able to hold something that's tactile and sticky anymore for it to have value. And data is the new thing, and we learn this every day, or we should learn it when we go on our social media accounts and we see the same thing over and over again. Or you go on your Netflix and it never shows you any new shows. And then you go to somebody else's house and you see their Netflix and you're like, look at all these movies that are on here. It's not because those movies aren't on your Netflix. It's because Netflix knows what you want to watch and they just recycle the same crap to you, right? Same thing with Facebook, Instagram. It's all a giant loop for you just to see your own self. And that's done because they own data. It's the same reason Zillow wanted Dot Loop. It's the same reason all these people want this data. And Ancestry.com. Now, I don't know why Blackstone, particularly what they're doing with it, but I can see exactly why they'd want that data.
Well, I will say this too, and people know this. So I did a video about the Great Reset, and Blackstone and BlackRock also are part of the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum. Just saying. So why are they collecting all this stuff?
I don't know,
I don't
man.
blame the conspiracy theorists for kind of wearing their tinfoil hat, because
Can
a
we just
lot
go
of
back?
when I started reading about the Great Reset, I'm like, all right, let's see what these wackadoodles have to freaking say. And I'm like, on the surface, it really does look like a pretty iced cake. And then you pull off this frosting and you're like, ew, 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 this is not good. This is not
Oh, yeah.
good.
And look, and here's the thing is Debbie hits the point. I want to use all these services for free, right? And the reality is they're not free. There is a data grab, there's a data sell, there's all these things in the background. And that's just what it is, right? Like I do always I'm really confused by people who are like, Facebook, you owe me something, or YouTube, you owe me something. Dude, you're using their platform. It costs you
For free.
literally nothing to store
Yep.
all of your photos. They have the right to yank that back whenever they want. I'm not saying they're not D's about it. I'm just saying go make your own Facebook if you want to have complete control over it. You know what I mean? Like, it just is what it
I
is.
love when people say I'm suing them. I'm like, good luck with that.
Good luck. They're a private company. They're letting you use their service for free.
For free. Yeah.
What it is.
Shane has a question. Says, do you think certain areas will limit foreign investors from buying houses? Do you think certain areas will do that? Maybe California, maybe
Well,
parts of New York, but I don't see it in anywhere else in the country.
yeah, I don't. I don't. I think again, it's such a slippery slope. I think you can't just limit. Man, you just had to apologize for making a crustacean on your channel, and yet we still think. And I'm not
Cooking
saying
it.
this person, yeah, cooking it. And I'm not saying this person thinks this, but then we have a whole other demographic of ideas that we could somehow limit something based off nationalities or area. Like, it's just, we live in this world
It
now.
wouldn't
I don't
work.
know. It just wouldn't work. That's my thing is I don't know how you do it in a way that's actually fair. I'm all
It wouldn't
about
work
limiting big
anyways.
corporations, but I just don't understand how you do that, you know?
Right. And who's to say what is considered a foreign investor, right? And not only
Exactly.
that, anybody that would be considered a foreign investor, there's nothing stopping them creating a company here in the United States and becoming a now domestic investor.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
can make a company here in the United States, create an LLC and call it a day. And now they're a domestic investor. Like,
Yep.
there's nothing stopping that. But the thing is I will tell you, in Canada, foreign investors became a huge problem and continued to be a huge problem. But in some areas, I can't remember which part of Canada it was, but they made it illegal for you to keep that investment property vacant because they had such a housing shortage that they made it you got fined if you
This I'm
kept
okay
it
with.
vacant.
I'm
Mhm.
actually super okay with that. I
Correct.
think it's a disservice to your neighbors. You bring
Mhm.
down the value of their asset. Homes are not built and designed to not be lived in. They need to be
Correct.
properly air conditioned. The pipes need to have water running through them, right? Like, I went to a
It's a
listing
living
appointment this
machine.
morning. It was a little old lady who she had a dishwasher, but it was just her. She hand washed all her dishes. The dishwasher hadn't been turned on in 7 years. Guess what? That dishwasher don't work anymore, right? Like,
Mhm.
you can't not use it for 7 years. And so I 100%. And I think some cities and municipalities do a good job of this by finding you when the effects of your vacancy end up outside in the form of your lawn and things like that. But really, all they do
Mhm.
is charge like a 10 times markup to mow your lawn. They'll charge like $300 to
Correct.
mow your lawn, right? Like, it's not really a
Correct.
deterrent at the end of the day, you know?
Not for some investors, it's certainly
No.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if people they had to prove if it was considered a vacation home, or, like, they had to They had to come up with something that they, why it was vacant. But in most cases, if you left it vacant for more than 6 months, you had to pay a hefty fine, or you had to rent it out.
I'm with that one. I'm with that.
Mhm. In Boise, I have 2 homes side by side on a just under an acre. I'm over home ownership and want something smaller. I feel guilty for wanting to sell, but I know I'll make bank. Should I feel guilty? Heck no.
Heck no.
No, like, there's no shame in selling your, income properties. If you've done what you needed to do, you've checked off that box, it's not something you wanna be a part of, you filled in the blank, you move on with your life. There's no one
I'm,
to tell you that you're doing it wrong or right, and if anybody is, you need to tell them to, like Matt said earlier, zip it. Zip it. They
I
don't
just
live your life.
they don't live your life, and that's the only thing that I think about it is like if it is a barrier to your happiness, and I'm not talking about your happiness, the fleeting happiness that didn't exist yesterday, but if you've been sitting there thinking about that for a long time, and it's something that just no longer serves you, and it's keeping you from doing the next thing, I think you sell that as quick as you can, right? Like it's
Mhm.
just I'm very much in this stage of my life about presence right now, and I'm trying very hard not to worry about what yesterday and what's going to affect me tomorrow, and I think that is a perfect example of it. If you are no longer
Mhm.
using that and it's no longer serving your happiness and it's hindering you from going to the place that is, even if that's just down the street, I don't think you need to hold on to a bit of guilt about that. And I'd move on just as quick as I could.
Yep, and laugh all the way to the bank.
Yep. And be happy you made that decision in a market that's
Yep.
advantageous.
Yep, and let everybody else just sit there and talk about you,
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Enjoy your latte at the Starbucks with being no longer a landlord. Have you
Exactly.
ever seen people purchasing, power decreases to the point of dropping out of the market? Have you ever seen people
Have you seen people's
purchasing
purchase? Oh, have you seen their
power?
purchase power due to interest rates? Oh, yes.
Oh,
That's
thank you. I
happening
would
actively right now. I had a
Oh,
deal that
absolutely. They got, their mortgages aren't working
Yeah, I had a
anymore for
deal, and
them.
forgive me if I already told this on this. I had a deal that was supposed to
Mhm.
close last Friday. We couldn't close. It turned out the condo was non-warrantable because it was in a FEMA flood cert, and the condo association refuses to carry flood insurance, which is infuriating, but fine. Everybody else was fine with carrying it, but the condo association said so. The condo is essentially non-warrantable. We didn't know that because my clients purchased it with cash, right? So the FEMA flood
Mm.
cert didn't come up. We get all the way to closing, the week of closing on Monday, and the lender reaches out and says, "Hey, we can't close on this." Took the whole week trying to find a solution, but it turns out the real reason the buyer didn't close on it wasn't that she wasn't willing to go non-warrantable. It was that she locked an interest rate 65 days ago at 3.5. And then when this deal fell apart and she was gonna have to go refi through a non-warrantable person, her interest rate jumped up to 6%. And she was like,
Ooh,
I would rather lose my 3 grand in earnest money to the seller than have the
be
two and a
locked
half
in
point
this.
hike because she was one of those people who was locked in at the great interest rate and then got hammered. And she completely opted out and went back to renting completely. That wasn't my buyer, but it was a buyer of a property. So to answer your question, heck yeah, there are buyers who opted out of this market due to interest rates, and I don't think that's the right move for everybody. I think a little bit of it was sticker shock. It's kind of like
Mhm.
something if I tell you an apple's $2 and then I turn around and tell you it's $4, you're going to think I'm overcharging you for it. But if the apple was always $4, you would think it was just $4. She just ran into that buzz saw of all of a sudden having that sticker shock of like, this is way more than I thought it was going to be, and her knee jerk reaction was just to leave the market. I think a year from now, when home prices are still gradually
High.
increasing and interest rates haven't went back down,
Mhm.
I think she's gonna be really bummed about that decision. But
No one will make it another you. It is impossible.
that's the existential question. Just because they clone me, they're not cloning my mind. So you're just getting a full grown baby version of Matt, which I promise you do not want.
I have to tell you, I think I'm not 100% sure. The rumor mill is that Barbara Streisand has cloned her dog like 3 times.
Oh my! See, I mean, well, we know they do the sheep thing. They did that since the '90s. They'll clone some sheep.
Ugh, whatever. I don't need to come back. I don't want to.
Yeah,
Could companies like Open Door, be regulated and banned in buying homes? Could they be regulated? I don't know how you would. I
I don't
honest
know
to
how you
God don't know
would.
how you could regulate it. I just
If you
don't
go back
know.
about 40 minutes ago, that was the company that I was referring to when I
Mhm,
say investors just purchasing a home from distressed buyers, because there are still distressed buyers
mhm.
in this market, right? Like purchasing a home from distressed buyers and not doing any mechanical upgrades at all, purely aesthetic upgrades. Now, it's not that they won't
Lipstick
negotiate
on
with
a
you, but they have
pig.
a yeah, and there's plenty of people like that, right? Like there's even individual
Mhm.
sellers who are not going to do that type of stuff. But again, it goes back to one of those things is I just don't know how you would do it. Open Door is not doing anything, honestly, other than lead generating better than most other real estate agents. Open Doors has a lead generation mechanism that allows people to come into their world. And hang on one second.
And grab their information without a link.
And grab their information, then retarget them until they're ready. What Open Door has is really amazing, robust follow-up systems that while you may not be willing or scared or in a financial position enough for it to make sense right now, they will keep marketing to you until you do, right? And they'll promise you a seamless transaction. If you really want to know, just go Google their FAQs. They'll tell you how much it actually costs to buy and sell with them. And it's more than a traditional real estate market, period.
Correct. Dolly the sheep was in fact genetically damaged.
I do not doubt it.
Oh, Eddie, you know what? I forgot to show everybody this. I've gotten tons of comments and people asking me where I get these cups. Eddie is now going to put a link in the description or in the comment section to my cups, to my my Amazon cups, because I like big cups and I cannot lie, but they're 24 ounce. They're 24 ounce coffee mugs. I highly recommend them.
Before you hit this question, I just want to throw this, Matt, in the comment section. Just Google interest rates over the past 50 years and look at the year-to-year breakdown if you want to see what it looks like historically. Just Google interest rates since 1970. You will be shocked to find that interest rates are probably on average about somewhere between 6 and 7% historically in that amount of time.
My first home I bought was 7.5%, and everybody kept telling me,
it.
But a great job. You must have really good credit.
I did this experiment, and I think even consumers can do this if you have a little bit of a social media following. I did this on my Facebook the other day. Just go on your Facebook and ask people what the interest rate of the first home they ever bought was. It will vary widely. I got people like in the teens. People bought in the 70s and 80s, bought in the teens.
Yeah.
Like that's bananas. Could you imagine an 11-12% interest rate right now?
I think my dad, when our house in Massachusetts, I think it was 13.75. You mentioned that HOAs can limit investors from buying up the neighborhood by limiting the amount of rentals available. Is there another defense neighborhoods can take against big companies? You work with your city as well. But as far as individual neighborhoods, that's the only thing I'm aware of that they can do is put it in the restrictions, because that would give them, it's in the books. It's in the law. Once you file those covenants in your, with your, courthouse, it's now like your laws in your HOA, like it's in your, like, that's it. You have a leg to stand on if you actually have to take somebody to court.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I know of personally that a individual neighborhood can
I will tell you, anytime you want to do something in community affecting local change is the quickest way to do it. I know it's really attractive in political scenarios to get online and yell about the big bad wolf up in Washington, DC. But the reality is, if you want to change your personal local situation, getting 100%. Involved in your local government is the fastest way to do it, period.
And most people don't do it. And you wouldn't believe
just such
how
a small
many
percentage
positions
of people who actually show up to those things. You'd be shocked at how much change you can actually influence just by showing up and saying anything.
And you'd be shocked how many positions are open for like we need somebody here. Like, just all you have to do is run a small campaign. You're going to be in there because you will be non-contested. You'll be non-contested. So oh, Eddie's got my coffee cup.
Nice.
You should have grabbed the short link at the top, Eddie, of the thing. It says, we'll say Amazon short link. That's why I forgot to put that that's my fault. I didn't put it in there before. He's trying to find it for me. Well, Matt, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of today's show once again. Everybody tell Matt thank you for being here, even though some of you like to fire Matt up.
I like it. I love your people. I just, like I said, sometimes
I love my people too.
They just say some like that person just said some off the wall stuff, so I had to make sure they knew. That's all.
Yeah. Look at that smile, like right at the top. That's all you see is Matt's teeth.
I've done so much. I know. I've done so much better though. I will tell you guys why you don't care about this. Kristina called my YouTube experience so dead on that the vlog was going to be impossible to maintain. It was just way too much content. So I've switched up some of the content. It's not exactly as sexy as it was, but I'm putting a lot more stuff on there. If anybody out here knows somebody who can help me post on social media, let me know, because I'm bogged down with myself.
I try to help you. You don't listen to me. I've tried to help you. You don't listen to me. So
I don't even know what I want to do with video. I just want to hang out with people and talk to them. I just keep thinking I need to do something more.
I don't know what to do with my life. Can you tell me?
You don't even understand how accurate that is to my actual human self. There is somebody sitting 10 feet from me right now that I will fast forward to this part of the show and she'll be like, yeah, that's about right.
I have to tell you, if like you have a question about Boxabl and you want me to ask that question of the people at Boxabl, I will be physically standing in their factory and I'm asking them everything. No nice Kristina is coming out. And I don't want to hear like, cause they give me this, they always do this thing too, where they always say, well, we're thinking about, well, we're looking into, no, I want direct answers. There's no more Mr. Evasive person. And I'm going to nail him down to make sure that he says what he means. Just say you don't know. Like we're looking into, we're, in the future. No, 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 no. I want a real answer. Kristina's done with that. So, everybody, I want to say thank you so much for spending the last hour and 19 minutes with Matt and I. If you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comment section below. If you need to have a referral for a real estate agent in your area, go visit my website at KristinaSmallhorn.com. Go ahead and book a time with me, or there's all those little pink boxes taking you to the same place, but book a time with me is you fill out the referral form. I get in contact with you. We have a little discussion of what you're looking for in a real estate agent. And then I find you a real estate agent that I know, and you get connected and everybody is happy, 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 happy. Don't forget to hit the like button, as Eddie says. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic week. Wave bye, Matt. Say what? Wave bye. Eddie might even put on some music. Maybe he can't put on Big Papa though.
Nothing copyrighted.
No. Oh, look, Big Papa. Look at him. Biggie Smalls is
It's just like the most like I'm about to go into like a resort massage music that has ever existed.
This is very 70s, like, wow.